Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Golden Boots podcast. This is your host, Jorge Gonzalez. Our podcast is all about soccer, all things soccer. We love soccer. Our podcast is brought to you by our channel, Top Bin 90. Today we have a very special guest. We've got Matt Spear. Matt is originally from the Winston Salem area. He spent time as a player, assistant coach, and head coach at Davidson. A couple of years as a president of Richmond Kicker, and now has his own consulting company called Love United, correct?
Very close. Love United FC.
I missed the FC, man.
Football club.
All right, just don't get it confused with CF or Inter Love United or anything like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's exact.
Nice. How's May treating you so far?
May's been good. You know, we're kicking this pandemic's butt. We're moving on. As my friend Cluey says, next chapter, best chapter. So
hey, I like that.
Let's make this year better than last. That won't be hard to do.
Next chapter, best chapter. So I guess this is the next chapter of the Golden Boots podcast. So we've got a talented guy on like you. So one of the things that we like to do on our podcast is kind of hear the stories of people and a little bit about like their beginnings with soccer. What was your beginnings with soccer?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jorge, and I want to hear your story on the air as well. And your sister's here. She can poke out any lies you say about yourself.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, grew up in Winston-Salem, as you said. Youngest of four. You're the oldest of three, so we're a little bit different coming at it in terms of older sibling, younger sibling. But I say youngest of four in that I had these siblings to look up to, and a lot of us were involved in sports. And I played just about every sport there was available. Eventually gravitated towards soccer, tennis, and basketball. One of the things that really turned me into a hardcore soccer guy is in fifth grade, I spent 2 weeks in Mexico City on an exchange program. And while I was there, I got to go to a game at the famous Azteca Stadium.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It scared the C-Rap out of me. But it was amazing, you know, on the edge of my seat. And it's just, that was one of those moments you go, this is real, this is authentic, and this is global. So that was one reason really kind of poured into the soccer. And then my junior year in high school, my high school soccer team went over to England. And I'm dating myself. This is right before the Premier League started, but we saw a game at Wimbledon. And again, I was just amazed and enthralled, and it just caught me. So, you know, all those sports experiences, but eventually gravitated towards soccer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting because back then, like now, soccer's more known within. I mean, we have the MLS has been around for a couple decades now. I mean, back then, like even like during those times when the USA played in the World Cup when it was hosted here, like it was a lot of college players. So I mean, like the culture of soccer, I guess you saw it to a very high magnitude coming from a country where it wasn't really played to like England radical, Mexico radical, right?
Yeah, you say back then because you're trying to point out that I'm twice your age. And we're talking about the 20th century now, the 1900s. You know, I'm okay. I'm age 50 and proud of it.
Nice.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, I grew up in the NASL days, you know, and the wildness of that. And in fact, in 1990, when I was at Davidson as a college student, I went over with three of my teammates and then head coach Charlie Slagle, the late, great Charlie Slagle, longtime mentor and hero to me. We went to the 1990 World Cup in Italy, and that was the first time the USA had qualified for the World Cup finals in, I think, 40 years.
Wow.
So, you know, way before I was born. So it was groundbreaking for us to actually be in the World Cup, and went over there and was fortunate to see two of the USA losses, but also 10 games overall, 10 games in 12 days. And just tooling around Italy on the train and being a college kid and getting into some trouble, but just loving the soccer.
Yeah.
And just being, again, just incredibly moved by it. What a global phenomenon. And I was fortunate enough to see the Brazil-Argentina quarterfinal. Ooh. And, you know, it was one of those games where I was sitting randomly with the Brazil fans, and the rivalry is just out of this world. I mean, you can't even explain it to Americans. And, you know, Maradona had made this play and these things happen, and Argentina squeaks through with a win. And you would think that the Brazil fans were going to die on the spot. I mean, it meant that much to them.
Yeah.
And again, it's just one of those countless experiences growing up where I realized that there is no more global phenomenon than soccer.
Yeah. Especially like with World Cups too, because like you get everyone's culture, right? Like you get people from Africa, you get people from North America, South America, Europe, And like you just like I haven't gotten to experience a World Cup yet, but that's something that I'm really looking forward to, just because like you could like there's so many cultures, and at the end of the day, like we're all human beings, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's we all know that 4 billion or so people watch the World Cup, so nothing's that watched in Super Bowls and Major League Baseball and whatever else you want to call it. They call it the World Series. Now, come on. So it's not the World Series. I give the NBA credit; they've gotten pretty global in their both their their players and their popularity, and so I'm a big basketball fan as well.
Nice.
Steph Curry fanatic.
Okay.
Deify that guy. Another incredible game last night.
Yeah. Former Davidson guy too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there was a stat at one point I read that there were more countries that were registered with FIFA than the UN. So literally, there were a couple countries that said soccer or world politics. I'm going with soccer, and so it's impossible sometimes for some Americans. And I love other sports, and I appreciate that soccer is not the biggest thing in the USA, and it's come a long way since I was a kid, back in the 20th century. But it's still got a heck of a long way to go.
Nice. That's awesome. I love all those experiences. Now, tell us a little bit about your time at Davidson. And so you first started off as a player. I know you mentioned to me that you guys made a Final Four during your time. I'm assuming it was because you carried the whole team, right?
No, not far from it. Soccer is just such a team sport, and that's one reason why I'm so drawn to it, both as a community builder, but also just the day of competition. I really thrive on being the underdog. And I say that one reason I chose to go to Davidson was partially because one of my older brothers, Michael, played there, so I got recruited a little bit as a result of that, and also because it wasn't the ACC. And I grew up a few blocks from Wake Forest, which is in the ACC, which is considered then and now the top college soccer conference in the country. And I wanted to go somewhere to be able to try to beat the ACC and not be in it. And I was fortunate to get a spot and play for Davidson and be a 4-year starter and a captain and MVP, all that silly stuff. But most importantly, a part of a class that improved the program. And we left it better than when we got there, and had this, remarkable kind of out of this world Cinderella story experience that had never been in the NCAA tournament, got in my senior year, and we got to the Final Four. And it was the Final Four semifinal game was actually played at Davidson, which is even weirder. We'd never been in the tournament, and so when Davidson bid to host the tournament, the NCAA was like, well, they'll never get in, so, whatever. They'll do a great job hosting it. And lo and behold, we had this awesome season. We got in, we just kept winning and played in the Final Four on our home field. So usually we'd have like 1,000, 2,000 fans at the semifinal. We had 8,000.
Wow.
So it was remarkable and fun. And when I got out of Davidson, MLS had not started yet. Again, dating myself. So MLS started in 96, and I thought about playing in USL, and sometimes I kick myself in the middle of the night thinking, I should have played a little bit of pro, but still have been involved and stayed in the sport my entire life.
Okay, nice. Tell us about that experience, like leaving Davidson. Actually, before we head into that, I like something that you said. You said you left it better than what it had. What kind of things do you think that team or that group of people did to kind of increase the standard? Because I think in every sport or in every program, there's certain people or certain players that come in and just increase the level or increase the standard. That way, the new class coming in says, hey, like, this is our maximum potential now, right? So wherever you choose to play at, that's on you, but this is now the standard.
Yeah. I'm a underdog fan. I love those stories. I love doing more with less and kind of breaking down barriers and proving people wrong. It's probably I'm a small guy. So, I was a center mid and like to, get in people's grill a little bit and just, I don't know. I just love breaking down people that are supposed to be above you. And I think soccer does a remarkable job about that. And I know we're going to talk about your native Honduras knocking the U.S. out of the Olympics. And there's so many good stories about that. And that's why one of the things that draws me to the sport. I would say the group that we had, we didn't win on talent. I mean, we had 0 scholarships, literally, 0 athletic scholarships. So we were a lot of just student athletes, overused cliche term, but we went there to get a good education and play for the varsity soccer team, for lack of a better term. None of us were highly recruited. We all graduated on time. We're just normal guys. But I think we fed off that, and our connection, our brotherhood, our fight, our resilience, our intensity ramped up, and we got a taste of success my sophomore year. We got ranked, and we started beating some good teams. I think it was sophomore year where we beat Duke, and it was at Duke, and that was one of those wins that just kind of catapults you. And then senior year, we just poured it on. I mean, we had some big wins. We beat North Carolina early in the season in overtime. Actually, Greg Berhalter was on that UNC team,
What?
U.S.
Really?
national team coach now.
Nice.
It was a crazy game, so it ended up being 9v9 because each team had 2 red cards. And it was like August in North Carolina, and you grew up here after, I know, moving from Honduras, you know how humid it is, and it was brutal. And
I guess you guys were just angry that it was hot and you were hitting each other. Then,
I know. We had a lot of overtime games in that season, and went out to UCLA and beat UCLA. And Brad Friedel was the goalie, and Joe Max Moore was on the team, and Frankie Haydick, and a bunch of guys that went on and did way bigger and cooler stuff than we did in soccer in terms of a playing standpoint. But we just loved like knocking teams off, and I just enjoyed that experience and owe so much to it. I was telling you, God, yesterday on the phone, I think I was a part of Davidson soccer between being a sibling, a player, an assistant coach, and a head coach for about 30 years, which is over half my life.
Yeah.
So I invested a lot, but also got so much from it.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about that then. Tell us about like how you went into becoming an assistant coach at Davidson.
Yeah, so during my 20s, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did want to try to stay involved in the sport and build it and give back to it. And I didn't think I was going to be a full-time coach for whatever reason. So in my 20s, during the 1990s, I was coaching on the side, helping as an assistant coach every few years, and then coaching youth as well. I was writing about the sport, but my main job was sports marketing around soccer. And so I joined this startup called Integrity Sports Marketing, originally built around televising college soccer because nobody was doing that. And we put on this series called College Soccer Weekly, and we televised about 80 or 85 broadcasts over a 4 or 5 year stretch.
So cool.
And they were highlight shows and matches of the week and NCAA, ACC, and Big East tournament games. And had no idea what I was doing, just like you starting, this
100%,
initiative, to being a fellow entrepreneur. And you just fake it, you just and so I was super fortunate to be a part of a cool startup. Pat Millen was the originator, and I was the kind of the first employee. And Adidas was our sugar daddy. I mean, they just hooked us up and just said, we believe in you guys. We know this needs to happen. And then in the mid-90s, the internet broke, right? You got to have an internet site, right? So the first one we did was collegesoccer.com. The next one was womensoccer.com, then soccerrecruiting.com. And then we started to consult and build websites for other entities. So we did US Youth Soccer's website, which is the largest youth soccer organization in the world. We did the NSCAA, which is now called United Soccer Coaches, largest single sport coaching organization in the world. And through that, just relationships and ideas flow when you start to network and build and consult. Ultimately, the last thing we built was called internetsoccer.com. We launched that in, I think, June of 99, right around the .com bust. And we were very fortunate to escape and sell it 13 months later to a company called Team Talk, which is a Leeds English-based publicly traded company at the time, and they acquired us. And that was all right, I'm 30, I've pushed hard, what's next? And then I transitioned.
Okay, awesome. I want to ask you a little bit about that time frame then, because, I mean, you pretty much started something from the ground up with a couple of different people. What do you think you most learned during that time? Because I feel like even like with our podcast and the stuff that I do, like it's so new. There's so many growing pains, but you learn so much. And there's so many valuable things that I'm going to apply 5, 10, 15 years from now. So like, can you kind of share some of those?
Yeah, you've got more courage and fight in you that I had at your age. I honestly was just lucky, I think. But I really enjoy speaking with people like you, millennials, and people in their 20s are starting their own thing. So I was recently on a podcast with David Lohman, who's in his mid-20s, and he's got this company called Lohman Health. Fed so much off of him, and I've had great conversations with other folks that are doing things at your age, and everybody always asks me that same question. And I say, man, it's a different time and different age, but I mean, gosh, you have to be hardworking, obviously, but you also have to surround yourself by good people and be brave and bold. The fact this is on TikTok, I had no idea until you told me. So there's all these
Shout
new
out to our TikTok.
Yeah, there are these new technologies coming on, and you're ahead of the game, and you've got passion for it. I know that. Watching some of your other broadcasts, I watched the last one with Brant and Rebecca Bronico, and I watched the one with Jamie DeLuzio, who played for me at Davidson, and it comes across like you got this electric, warm smile and this demeanor that is real and passionate and connected. And so when people are around you, they build off that energy, and you're going to get more energy from that because people are going to be attracted to that.
I appreciate that. I'll slip you that 20 later. I'm just kidding.
You already got me the water. So.
Nice. Awesome. I love that. A lot of the stuff that you touched on is exactly what I wanted you to talk about, because I think in soccer, like, there's people that are going to go and play at a very high professional level, and there's people that want to stick within that soccer field, and sometimes they don't know what to do. And sometimes, man, like, you just have to take risks, right? Like, you have no idea what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, like, I would rather look back in my life when I'm 85 and say, you know what, I tried that and I failed, than to say, you know what if I would have tried it, Yeah,
I mean, you've got to put yourself out there. And when you do something that you're passionate about, I remember having some mentors tell me when I was about your age, it may or may not succeed, but you're not going to regret it.
100%.
And if it works out, gosh, then you got the golden boots.
Yeah, right. Nice. Awesome. Transitioning over to your time at Davidson, then tell us about that.
So I'd never taken a job that I knew what I was doing. So every job I've started, I've pretty much gone in wide open and just figured it out. And so going from marketing to full-time coaching, I'd never been a full-time coach. The only advantage is that it was my alma mater, so I knew the formula of Davidson, and it is unique. I believed in its mission of developing folks for lives of leadership and service. And I believed in the education side of it. I believed in the underdog mentality of trying to play ACC teams. So I had something in my heart and brain a little bit, but I didn't know the X's and O's of being a head coach. So I jumped in and started getting my licensing. So, got my C license, got my B license, got my U.S. Soccer A license, and then moved over to NSCA, now United Soccer Coaches, and got my Premier Diploma. So I started to ramp up more on just verbiage and running a session and leading soccer teams, things like that. But, leadership is kind of nature nurture. You have a little bit of it already, and then you try to develop it. And I lucked out. I had great people alongside me, and I empowered my assistant coaches. So I say that the coach with me, and I never called them assistants. I called them coaches. So Coach Todd Herman came with me. He was there before me, and I kept him on because I liked him, and the players liked him, and we respected each other. And the very first recruiting class that Todd and I got ended up, lo and behold, being the top most winning recruiting class in the history of Davidson soccer.
Wow.
So, I mean, literally still today, and the program's been around since the 1950s. And so they just crushed it, and we just had good guys and good people. And I think the other thing I tried to, there was turnover in a coaching staff along the way because, most college soccer programs don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And especially assistant coaches, and they gotta have a night job coaching a club, Charlotte Independence or whatever it is on the side, and they're hustling. And so they're looking for the next job, and I totally got that and understood that. And I just said, I'm going to get the best coach I can get, and then I'm going to just, develop them and work with them and let them give to the program and vice versa and let them move on. And I say that I had pretty consistent turnover in my staff, but it was deliberate. I think a lot of coaches and a lot of leaders, they are fearful of putting people around them that may be out for their job or smarter than them or tell them what to do. And I don't have any ego on that at all. Like, I went in thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to get myself around great people.
That's so good.
So I was fortunate. I had, so many good people like Todd Herman that came through, and they did this on their own. But just for example, 9 of my assistant coaches, if that's the word for them, became NCAA head coaches.
Wow.
And it's by their own talent, and other experiences and other mentors besides me. But I'm just proud, and I follow them. And wish them well and want them to succeed because of what they learned through their experience at Davidson.
Yeah, I love that a lot, especially like the portion where you talk about ego, because I think that gets in the way of success so much. A lot of people, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, whether it's somebody that's doing something, they let that get in their way so much, and they're missing out on so much opportunity, not only to strengthen relationships, but to grow personally and in all aspects of life, right?
Yeah. In soccer, has a lot of arrogance.
Yeah.
And we may get into the USA a little bit, and how poorly we've done, national team levels, experiences, et cetera. But I also think a lot of coaches have this tendency to think they have it all figured out. And they walk on their field, they look great, and they think they have the best session ever, and they leave. And are they really being mindful? Are they really embracing that they're there for the team and for the players? Are they others-oriented, or are they me-oriented? Yeah. Do they want to look good versus actually, cultivating something? And one of my mentors told me once, and I got to get better at this today and then, is I needed to make sure that I was cultivating, not promoting. It's one thing to be a good wordsmith and say the right things and put banners on the wall and have all these cliches, but if you're not activating it and walking the walk and talking the talk at the same time, it comes across as flat or empty or shallow.
Wow, I love that. Cultivating versus promoting. Mm-hmm. That is actually, I've never heard that before. So
yeah, and everybody should have mentors, and I didn't learn that till too late. And it's not an age thing. Like, I'll talk to high school athletes and I'll say, you can be a mentor too. Like, they'll say, you're a mentor, Coach Matt, or whatever they call me. And I'm like, no, you can be a mentor. I can learn from you. And like, who can I be a mentor to me? Well, one, I'm learning from you when I'm talking with you, like today, Jorge.
Yeah.
But also, like, those high school athletes, they can work with younger athletes. Yeah. They can work with special needs kids. They can work with someone that may be struggling in the class that they do really well on. So we just got to focus more on helping each other, serving. Yeah. And I'm a servant leader, which means it's stronger together and we build together.
100%. I read pretty consistently different books, and you always get more value when you're looking at how you can give to somebody else versus what you can gain, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's mindfulness and gratitude's positive sandwich that I really work on.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even like the times where I guess I'm not the happiest or I'm like wondering what's going on, I'm like, okay, like, you're thinking more about yourself versus how you can add value to whatever you're doing, Yes.
Yeah. In coaching, I know you asked me over the air to talk a little bit about recruiting. And one thing I learned when I was a coach is I started to really expand my awareness around what a good athlete means. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going to get the top blue collar, flagship player because they're going to go to Duke or Wake or Carolina or wherever, because bigger school and loftier standards and history and resources and scholarships, et cetera. So I had to find those kind of diamonds in the rough. And what I tried to do is find guys that were gritty and team-oriented and were selfless and liked to play the chip on their shoulder and didn't want something handed to them. And those are hard to find, but if you get enough of those together, you can really do some damage.
That's good. What kind of things were you noticing when you're looking for these players? Like, are you looking at it from an attitude perspective, what they're doing on the field? I mean, like, I feel like different players show that in different ways. Because I've seen different players where, like, bro, like, you got to relax. But at the same time, that's how you get the best out of them,
Yeah, they've got to have a fire in their belly. You can't. I'd rather have a player that's too wild on the field and too energetic and too going to kick you in the versus the guy that's kind of a gentle giant or Jekyll and Hyde. He's kind of nice guy, finished last kind of thing. You can bring a passion down, but it's hard to really elevate it. And so I'm a nice guy, you probably think, but on the field, I was going to run through a wall for my team and for the ball. So just finding people that are hungry and assertive and again others oriented. Soccer is the furthest thing from an individual sport and an individual community.
Yeah. What kind of things have you noticed in terms of the style of player, how that's gravitated through the years, especially now because we live in a internet world where, like, I feel like it's information is more accessible. Just people don't really take advantage of it. Like maybe 10 or 15, 20 years ago, like if you wanted to work on a certain way of developing your styles, you really couldn't just go on YouTube and watch Neymar or watch Ronaldinho or watch Messi, right? Like you had to go to coaches, and like I feel like now, especially when you're younger, you have the position to, okay, how can I learn based off the resources that I have?
Yeah, the extreme of it is analytics, and that's where some of the game has gone in all sports.
Yeah,
soccer
that's a good point.
If you think about what Charlotte FC is doing, with their primary scout and agent Thomas, and those guys, they look at numbers and then they figure out, all right, of these 300, flank midfielders, which one's going to fit our style, and they narrow it down from there. So something to be said for that. But I still go back to the passion and the heart. I still think you can be a great soccer player from any environment. You don't have to come through this club or that club. There's so many experiences. And I think in America, sometimes we get in our own way where we think you have to go through a certain channel. And some of the best soccer, football is found in the street, on the beach, and in a parking lot.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Like, that's why, like, when you think of, like, some of the greatest players of all time, like, they come from pretty much nothing.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, they always have that chip on their shoulder, even when they're successful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
Nice. Awesome. So if I was, like, a young 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, what kind of advice would you be giving me to, like, okay, like, what do you need to continue to do for you to get noticed?
Yeah, I mean, the tendency is to say you got to play soccer every single day, and I actually don't believe that. And not just from my own experience playing different sports growing up, I still feel like sometimes in America we can get too focused on a sport too early, and often that leads to burnout or repetitive use injuries. And so, you know, my 13-year-old son is a basketball junkie, but I still want him to do other activities and other sports, because if he pours himself too much into it, then what will happen is he'll start to call himself a basketball player. And he's not a basketball player. He's a kid that loves basketball. There's a difference. And I would have that with my Davidson players, because they would be so upset if we lost a game sometimes, or if they're injured and couldn't play, or I wasn't giving them enough playing time, because their identity was so focused on being that star player that they thought they should be. And so I think you need balance, right? You know, you got to recover and you got to have other interests. And so when you do put that hour, 2, 3, whatever it is into your passion, your craft, you're all in.
Okay, so it's more like maximizing, right?
Yeah, it's quality over quantity.
100%. I like that. That's actually really good.
Well, thank you. You don't have to tell me that.
You're like, I know. I've coached for a long time.
No.
Nice. Awesome. Tell us your transition then from Davidson to Richmond. What was that like?
So, yeah, I coached 18 years, and it was like a blink of an eye, you know. And my predecessor, Charlie Slagle, coached 21 years. And I used to say he probably stayed longer and accomplished more than he would have thought. And I was the same thing. I probably stayed longer and accomplished more than I would have thought. And after 18 years, I was starting to think about what's next in my life and what do I want to do. And I love coaching, but I'm not born to coach. I don't want to do it my whole life. And I had a career before coaching, so I was ready, probably more than ready. And we had a really good season in 2018. So the opportunity came along that 5 of my 1992 Davidson College Final Four teammates bought the Richmond Kickers pro soccer team. Okay. So they play in USL League One, which is considered third division pro soccer. So these are all soccer fans, but I call it AA baseball, people that aren't in soccer. You got Major League, AAA, AA, single A. And they said it needs a reboot, and we need a new chapter, and will you come up and get after it and kind of boots on the ground thing. So 2019, I was up there 49 straight weeks, still had my family down in Davidson, and just really kind of rolled my sleeves up. It was a bigger turnaround than I thought it was going to be. It had some real kind of distinct ingrained challenges culturally and vision, and the stadium was 90 years young, I called it. It was a relic, and there was a new league, USL League One, which is kicking off. So there was a lot of entrepreneur. There we go, starting over. But I poured myself into it, and I am better because of it. We got better while we were there, brought in a new coach and sporting director, hired a lot of people in the front office, wrote a whole mission vision, did about $2 million of renovation to the stadium, which was good and needed and long overdue. Nothing had been done for over 20 years. The team went from second bottom to second top from year 1 to year 2.
Wow.
So after
big improvement.
Yeah, thank you. And then, you know, with COVID and other things in my personal life, I decided 2 seasons was the right amount.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. And then you came back to Charlotte or the Davidson area.
Yep.
And you decided to start Love United FC, correct?
You got it.
Nice.
A+.
Got that FC part in.
Your sister's laughing over here. So, yeah, finished the season in October and didn't know what I was going to do. There really weren't any jobs in soccer because of the pandemic. And, you know, I had been kind of putting feelers out and talking to folks, and literally just a mile down the road where Charlotte FC headquarters were, had a meeting with Martin Nichols, technical director. I've known him for a long time, had some good conversations with Tom Glick, who's the president. of Tepper Sports, overseeing the Panthers
Yep.
and Charlotte FC. Know Dustin Swinehart very well, community relation director. But just no one's hiring, and they needed some time and space. And so talking to Charlotte Independence and thinking about some other ideas. So what I decided to do is just hang a shingle, have my own business called Love United FC. And there's two reasons for it. One is it was a self-awareness project. And the focus of Love United FC is, besides the consulting side, is for me to learn more about well-being, mindset, culture, leadership. And so I have a Love United FC Facebook page that when I read things I put on there, they're really for my own edification. If someone reads it, great. If they don't, doesn't matter to me. It's just for me to catalog what I'm reading and learning about.
Okay.
And then I have a Love United FC Instagram that I just put affirmations and things that I read that move me. So that was one angle of it. And to put through some mental health challenges that I talked to you about off the air, and I'll tell you about more in a minute, through 2020 and 2019 experience, personally and professionally. And then secondly was to start to go back to some of the groups I was talking to and say, all right, I know there's no full-time jobs there, but what about some part-time stuff? What about some consulting? And that's how the flow went.
That's awesome. I love everything about that, especially because you have so much experience. And also, I think anytime that you do something or you start something for yourself, if you don't love it, then like it's never going to work out.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be so many challenges. Like you and I both know, like with stuff that we do, like there's so many things that I just like want to roll my eyes over and just, like don't bother me. But at the end of the day, like I love doing it so much that I'm just going to continue to work at it, and something that you started to touch on that I know you're going to get into is just like the mental health side of things. I think Rebecca and Brant did a good job of talking a little bit about that on our last podcast. And I kind of want you to expand more on that because that's something that we're seeing more often nowadays. I think the internet world and everything being in our face so much has highlighted that a lot,
Yeah, it's a challenging time. And I think, first of all, kind of globally, locally, if you think about the pandemic, it has really kind of raised the attention and statistics around mental health. And a few reasons. One is that the pandemic has been three areas that's really, really hurt our brains and our civilization, besides the death. It would be loneliness, which leads to isolation because of forced quarantining, et cetera. Negative surprises, because you don't know if you have a job, you don't know if you're going to have soccer this year, you don't know if your league's going to happen, so that's really hard. So isolation, and I think just negative surprises, and then uncertainty, just not knowing how this thing's going to play out, and those are part and parcel for my own growth as well. I think for me, I had some anxiety in my life, and it had kind of bubbled up a few different times. And I think between just the experience in Richmond and the travel and some personal things that happened in my life. So I lost a college roommate. I lost my college coach, Charlie Slagle.
Sorry to hear
I lost my dog. My mom's health dwindled. I had some stuff. And it just kind of tipping point last winter. And that went right into the pandemic, right into Black Lives Matter, right into the election. So 2020 for me was a really personally and mentally challenging year. But I also learned a ton through it. And I feel way more self-aware, authentic, vulnerable, balanced, grounded. And so my life is different, and our world's different.
Yeah.
And so I've had to adjust and change. And I think along that way, it's inspired me to do more focus on helping people with their mindset and mentality, with the sport and otherwise. And so one of the projects I'm involved in, we'll segue to that, is Soccer Resilience. So there's 3 other co-founders and myself, and that is mindset training for soccer players, parents, coaches, teams, organizations. And we kicked that off this past winter. Charlotte Independence, the youth side, was one of our first big clients and customers and partners. So for example, this winter we did 4 mental training sessions on Zoom for their top 30 boys and girls teams. And it's all about mindset. It's all about taking control, and it's all about finding purpose and perseverance for your performance.
Yeah.
Really fun. And we wrote the curriculum from scratch and learned a lot through it. And we're taking that from there, going to work with other clubs. getting ready to launch something called Soccer Resilience FC, which will be an online academy, which will be a library of resources for, again, players, coaches, and parents to learn about mindset with activation tools and strategies, with videos, with guest speakers, things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's something that like it's very needed in our sport. You know, it's beginning to happen, but like it's something that you see more often now too. And not that I love that you experienced it, but you have such a connection to it that I feel like it's that connection you can kind of understand where people come from.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. No, and I always start the question like, 'cause you played soccer all the time growing up. I know you're recovering from an ACL. You're gonna get back there soon. You're running
100%,
yesterday.
yeah.
And but I always ask like, so I say, Jorge, does the mental side of soccer matter?
Me knowing now, 100%,
Yeah.
1,000.
Okay, so the next question I ask is, all right, so what percentage of playing well on Saturday is mental? What percentage of being at your best on a match?
90%.
See? Now, next question would be is, what are you investing in mental health? What are you investing in mental training and your mindset and your mentality? Is it 90% of your time?
No, it's probably like 10 to 15.
Exactly, right? So few people are doing it, and there's a myriad of reasons why people aren't doing it. One is the stigma. One is they don't know what to do. And one is they're kind of scared to ask about it because it starts to talk about emotions and other things they got in their life that are kind of dark and tough.
Yeah.
But the pandemic, for as bad as it is, it gives us this opportunity to pivot and to look at things differently. Organizations, clubs, sports, education, you name it, everything can be looked at through a different filter, and it's been needed for a long time.
100%. I
So
agree
the
with
stigma around mental health and mentality is really changing. Part of that is professional athletes coming out and really admitting that they have significant challenges and that they do things to help them out. So
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant meditated every single day. It was his anchor, he called it. Zach Prescott just, had a whole thing about his depression and challenges he'd been in. Kevin Love, another basketball player. Michael Phelps, a swimmer, et cetera, et cetera.
Erling Haaland is a big yoga guy, so like
Yes.
he gives a lot of his credit and movement on and off the pitch to yoga.
Totally. So it's ready, and we need it, and I'm enjoying that, and just trying to give back to people in the game.
Yeah, I love that too because I feel like in the past or like anytime you have a situation, people like are very quick to brush it off or just like it's easy to say, yo, just be positive or man, just look at the bright side at life. Honestly, sometimes like I've had conversations with different people. You just have to be there for people as well.
Totally.
Sometimes they just need to let that out. And so like I think from understanding things from a mental aspect as well, because I've been doing some research on it as well, I understand like the mechanics of like anytime you hold a lot of negativity or a lot of mental negativity, like the one form of just getting better is letting it out as well, right?
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. And we need to realize that mental health is as important or more important as physical health.
100%.
So here you are, you tear your ACL, it's a several-month recovery, and all that rehab and all that therapy and all that focus and all that skills and work you got to do to get your body back. Same thing with the mind. You're gonna have injuries. You're gonna have bad moments. You're gonna have a parent situation that you told me about or whatever. You're gonna have hard times in life, and we need to slow down and think about that. And for me, the focus for me, and also what I've learned from psychologists and others that I've worked with and read, is the mind's like the top of the waterfall. Everything comes down from your mind. So your thoughts that will then determine your mood, your motivation, your performance, all those things.
That's good. I love that.
Yep.
You got any other cool quotes that you could tell us? Maybe I can write them down.
Oh man, I got tons, man. I'll send you some after the fact, and we'll go through that. But it's been an experience, and it's for me. It's just about giving back and helping people.
Nice, awesome. I love that. Tell us a little bit about your partnership with Charlotte Independence as well.
Yeah, so that's one of the other primary things I'm working on with Love United FC, and I want soccer to succeed because this is my hometown. I mean, I grew up in North Carolina, an hour from here. I've lived in the greater Charlotte area for 30 years or so. I lived in Noda. I lived in Fourth Ward. I lived in Dilworth. I now live up in the Lake Norman area near Davidson. And when I grew up, I always wanted to have a big pro soccer team in town. And we got Charlotte FC coming, which I'm thrilled about. I can't wait till next year. And I've got a prop for that. See, I've got my Mint City Collective card right there, baby.
Nice.
Yeah, yep. day zero original member. So I want soccer to succeed at all levels. But in the short term, the way I can help is the other pro team in town, which is the Charlotte Independents that play in the USL Championship, which is the second division in U.S. Soccer Pyramid. And I'm there to support Coach Mike Jeffries and the front office, and Tim Schultz, the president and chief operating officer, as a development ambassador. Really trying to help them kind of rewrite a new narrative for 2021, partially around the fact that they're going to open a $40 million new memorial stadium in July, which is downtown.
It's exciting, yeah.
Uptown, we call it, right?
Yeah.
So they've been out in Matthews at the Sportsplex, and they've bounced around. They were at Ramblewood Soccer Complex before that, but they've had this destination, this journey toward getting Uptown, and now they're going to finally be there come July, and I'm thrilled about that. And, you know, what I would say to Charlotte FC fans is, come on over this year. Let's have a blast, and you can have whatever frosty beverage you choose to have on a summer night, and cheer on your team, cheer on Brant Bronico, Charlotte FC player on loan. Practice your chants, wear your Charlotte FC, whatever you want to do. So I'm working with Mint City Collective. I want to give back to them as well. I have in my head that we'll have a donation platform back towards MCC, Mint City Collective, for players or for members that come to our games and purchase tickets. And really want to be more development in the community. Mm-hmm. So at Richmond, you know, I wrote a whole deck, and our big themes were joyful, authentic, united, with our mission of contributing back to the community. And that's what we want to do with Charlotte Independence as well. So we have, you know, theme nights, like one of them is going to be Pride Night, and I have a really good partnership relationship that we're building with Charlotte Pride. Okay. We're going to have a huge fan appreciation on the last game, you know, with fireworks and celebrations. I want to get more involved in the African American community, so I'm reaching out to Charlotte Post. You know, Charlotte needs soccer really badly, and I think it can help bring different kind of people together around civic pride, around inclusiveness, around diversity, and just celebrate being outside together, which we are all craving.
Finally, right?
We're craving. We've been cooped up. So whether it be a concert or a soccer game, whatever it is, we want to get outside and be together.
Yeah, I love it. I think hopefully this is not like just a 1 year feeling after everything like technically goes back to normal, but like people just appreciate what we had in the past. Because I know like you watched, like I was watching a video of like the Boca Junior fans, and like how like rowdy and awesome they are like when their team plays, and I'm like, man, like we should take stuff like this for granted, you know?
I know. That's part of that shift and that reality and pivot. So I did bring a. Can we see that?
Yeah.
There. So we got that.
It looks good.
Yeah. So Charlotte Independence, toss it over to you, brother.
Ooh. I'll definitely be out at some games this year. So
yeah, you know, and it's great because it's a fun atmosphere. Soccer. Those that know soccer watching this broadcast already know that it's going to be at Uptown Stadium. It's right next to CPCC, so it's not a new stadium, but it's not a renovated stadium. So American Legion Memorial Stadium's been there for like 85 years.
And you have an amazing view of the city there.
I know the cityscape's right behind it. It have a huge Daktronics video board, so it's modern. It's going to look really good. It holds 10,000 people. And so I just encourage people to listening to spread the word that there's a pro soccer team that's going to be Uptown this year that's going to build momentum towards Charlotte FC.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
We're doing this as a sport and as a city. You know, tickets are, gosh, you can get a game day ticket for like $12. And so, you know, folks can come. I want to do more with the community. For example, each of the Charlotte Independence pro players get a game, and they get 40 tickets to give out to the community. And so I want to spread that word on this broadcast and otherwise, that we want to find kids groups that can utilize those tickets to come enjoy pro soccer and be outside together.
I love that.
So it's just connecting the dots around Charlotte. And Charlotte has changed and grown and evolved so much. I just think Charlotte Independence and then FC on top of that are a massive opportunity.
Yeah, I really am happy and very appreciative of what you're doing for the community, because I think like something that we do with this podcast as well is like we want to contribute to that soccer community here in Charlotte. I mean, having Charlotte FC is going to be amazing, but we also have Charlotte Independence and all the great things that it seems like you guys are doing as well. So
Totally. The sport is ripe and the city needs it.
100%. My last question then to you would be is what has soccer taught you about success?
Gosh, I hate to go back to that term, stronger together. You know, I used to have this saying, I'd say, I am strong, we are stronger. And so as important as self-esteem and self-awareness and self-confidence are, you're nothing without other people.
100%.
If you try to go alone, you're only going to go so far. But if you can join together with people, I like the equation 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. Awesome. It's about building the community. It's about being involved with others. Because at the end of the day, like, I think I heard this one time, like, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If at your deathbed no one's there, then what did you really do?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's part of that pivot. We can transform right through this pandemic and somehow take something from it.
100%. I love that. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Jorge, thank you. I enjoyed it. I look forward to more conversations with you.